Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gauda Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Bhakta C, welcome to you. Bhakta Josh, Nukunjanagari, Davidasi, and anybody else who may watch later. Hare Krishna. We're continuing on in our ecstatic hearing session of Srimad Bhagavatam, and today we are continuing with Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 38, 1:18:38. Yes. So if you'd like to follow along, one second, just need to take some water here. Yep, we'll just dive in with the invocation and see what Prabhupada's going to say today. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Ridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Sahritsatam Nashtaprayashvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. Can anyone let me know if its signal is okay? Because yesterday I think it was quite choppy and messed up, so I want to make sure it's okay this evening.
So far, so good. Sometimes it's fine in the live, and then the recording it seems off.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just roll with it then.
Alrighty. Where are you broadcasting from today?
An undisclosed secret location. I
Very
can never
nice, very
reveal at
nice.
this time.
Cool.
But it's Sri Shigornitai's temple, and Giriraj is here, and the Shringadev, and Radha
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
and ecstatic Harry Bowlers, we could say. Hare Krishna. Okay. Um, okay, we're diving in here. Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 38. Tato vyatyaashramam bhalo gale sarpa kalevaram pitaram viksha dukharto mukta kanto. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. Purport. The boy was not happy, because he committed a great mistake, and he wanted to be relieved of the burden on his heart by crying. So after entering the hermitage and seeing his father in that condition, he cried loudly so that he might be relieved. But it was too late. The father regretted the whole incident. Savangiraso Brahman Shudvasuta Vilapanam Unmilya Shanakar Netre Jaswachangse Mritoragam. O Brahmanas, the Rishi, who was born in the family of Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. Visruja tam cha paprachcha vatsakasmadiro dashi kenavate prakritim ityukta sanyavedaya. By the way, happy to have you back, Bhakti. I hope
Thank you,
you're
Prabhuji.
well too
I
and
actually have
safe in
a
your
recommendation.
travels.
Thank you.
I was feeling your separation tremendously because. Sorry?
Um, just like
You have a recommendation?
it's getting a little, it's a little choppy. I don't know if you have other apps on your phone open, but if you close everything except for Zoom, it should help with your connection a little bit. Might make just like the little bit of difference for you.
Hare Krishna. Zoom? Okay, maybe that'll help. Wonder why. Okay. And we lost Bhakti C. Alright. Text 40. Vishujatam cha prapascha vatsakasmadiro Kainavate prakritam it yukta sanyavedayat. Let's see. He threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. Okay, we got Bhakti C back.
All
We
right, good.
took your recommendation to heart. Hopefully it helped. But yeah, we were feeling your separation for several days. So happy to have you back.
Yes, I'm glad to be back with you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Chris. Oncology is here. Haribol Prabhuji.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Um, Purport. The father did not take the dead snake on his neck very seriously. He simply threw it away. Actually, there was nothing seriously wrong in Maharaj Parikshit's act, but the foolish son took it very seriously. And being influenced by Kali, he cursed the king and thus ended a chapter of happy history. Shamyasaptam matad arham narendram sabrahmano natmajam abhyanandat ahobatam ho maharadyate kritam alpiyasi droha urodamodrtaha. The father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best amongst all human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, "Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense." Purport. The king is the best of all human beings. He is the representative of God, and he is never to be condemned for any of his actions. In other words, the king can do no wrong. The king may order hanging of a culprit son of a Brahmin, but he does not become sinful for killing a Brahmana. Even if there is something wrong with the king, he is never to be condemned. A medical practitioner may kill a patient by mistaken treatment, but such a killer is never condemned to death. So what to speak of a good and pious king like Maharaj Parikshit? In the Vedic way of life, the king is trained to become a Rajrishi, or a great saint, although he is ruling as king. It is the king only by whose good government the citizens can live peacefully and without any fear. The Rajrishis would manage their kingdom so nicely and piously that their subjects would respect them as if they were the Lord. That is the instruction of the Vedas. The king is called Narendra, or the best amongst the human beings. How then could a king like Maharaj Parikshit be condemned by an inexperienced, puffed-up son of a Brahmin, even though he had attained the powers of a qualified Brahmana? Since Shamika Rishi was an experienced good Brahmana, he did not approve of the actions of his condemned son. He began to lament for all that his son had done. The king was beyond the jurisdiction of curses as a general rule, and what to speak of a good king like Maharaj Parikshit? The offense of the king was most insignificant, and his being condemned to death was certainly a very great sin for Shringi. Therefore, Rishi Shamika regretted the whole incident. Navainarabhirnaradevam parakyam samatimarhasya vipakvabuddhe yatejasa durvishahena gupta vindanti bhadranya kuto bhaya prajaha. Oh my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with common men. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by his unsurpassable prowess. Alakshyamane Naradeva Namni Ratangapana Vayamangalokaha Tadahi Chaura Prachuro Vanangshyatya Rakshamana Vivaluttavakshanat. My dear boy, the Lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime. And when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like scattered lambs. Purport. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the monarchical regime represents the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. The king is said to be the representative of the absolute personality of Godhead because he is trained to acquire the qualities of God to protect the living beings. The Battle of Kurukshetra was planned by the Lord to establish the real representative of the Lord, Maharaj Yudhisthira. An ideal king, thoroughly trained by culture and devotional service with the martial spirit, makes a perfect king. Such a personal monarchy is far better than the so-called democracy of no training and responsibility. The thieves and rogues of modern democracy seek election by misrepresentation of votes, and the successful rogues and thieves devour the mass of population. One trained monarch is far better than hundreds of useless ministerial rogues. And it is hinted herein that by abolition of a monarchical regime like that of Mars Prediction, the mass of people become open to many attacks of the age of Kali. They are never happy in an overly advertised form of democracy. The result of such a kingless administration is described in the following verses. Tadadhyana papam upaityanan bayam yanashdanadhasya vishuravilumpakat parasparam ghananti sapanti vrinjate pashunstriyo ritan purudasya vojanaha. Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins we shall be responsible. Purport. The word na, we, is very significant in this verse. The sage rightly takes the responsibility of the Brahmanas as a community for killing monarchical government, and thus giving an opportunity to the so-called Democrats, who are generally plunderers of the wealth of the state subjects. The so-called Democrats capture the administrative machine without assuming responsibility for the prosperous condition of the citizens. Everyone captures the post for personal gratification, and thus instead of one king, a number of irresponsible kings grow up to tax the citizens. It is foretold herein that in the absence of good monarchical government, everyone will be the cause of disturbance for others by plundering riches, animals, women, and so on. Tataraya dharma pravaliyate naranam varnashrama yutaschayi tatorta kama biniveshitatmanam shunam kapinam iva varna shankaraha. At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of a progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the castes and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification. And as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. Hare Krishna. Purport. It is foretold herein that in the absence of a monarchical regime, the general mass of people will be an unwanted population like dogs and monkeys. As the monkeys are too sexually inclined and dogs are shameless in sexual intercourse, the general mass of population born of illegitimate connection will systematically go astray from the Vedic way of good manners and qualitative engagements in the castes and orders of life. The Vedic way of life is the progressive march of the civilization of the Aryans. The Aryans are progressive in Vedic civilization. The Vedic civilization's destination is to go back to Godhead, back home, where there is no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. The Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but to go towards the light of the spiritual kingdom far beyond the material sky. The qualitative caste system and the orders of life are scientifically planned by the Lord and his representatives, the great rishis. The perfect way of life gives all sorts of instruction in things both material and spiritual. The Vedic way of life does not allow any man to be like the monkeys and dogs. A degraded civilization of sense gratification and economic development is the byproduct of a godless or kingless government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people should not, therefore, begrudge the poor administrations they themselves elect. Dharmapalo Narapati Satu Samrat Brihasdravaha Sakshan Mahabhagavato Rajashir Hayamed Hayat Chutrit Shramayuto Dino Naivasmas Chapamarhati. The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. Purport. After explaining the general codes relating to the royal position and asserting that the king can do no wrong and therefore is never to be condemned, the sage Shamika wanted to say something about Emperor Parikshit specifically. The specific qualification of Maharaj Parikshit is summarized herein. The king, even calculated as a king only, was most celebrated as a ruler who administered the religious principles of the royal order. In the Shastras, the duties of all castes and orders of society are prescribed. All the qualities of a Kshatriya mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, 1843, were present in the person of the emperor. He was also a great devotee of the Lord and a self-realized soul. Cursing such a king, when he was tired and fatigued with hunger and thirst, was not at all proper. Shamika Rishi thus admitted from all sides that Maharaj Parikshit was cursed most unjustly. Although all the Brahmanas were aloof from the incident, still, for the childish action of a Brahmin boy, the whole world situation was changed. Thus, Rishi Shamika, a Brahmana, took responsibility for all deterioration of the good orders of the world. Papeshu svabhrityeshu palena patvabuddhina papam kritam tad bhagavan sarvatmakshantimarhati. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Purport. Everyone is responsible for his own action, either pious or sinful. Rishi Shamika could foresee that his son had committed a great sin by cursing Maharaj Parikshit, who deserved to be protected by the Brahmanas, for he was a pious ruler and completely free from all sins because of his being a first-class devotee of the Lord. When an offense is done unto the devotee of the Lord, it is very difficult to overcome the reaction. The Brahmanas, being at the head of the social orders, are meant to give protection to their subordinates and not to curse them. There are occasions when a Brahmana may furiously curse a subordinate Kshatriya or Vaishya, and so on, but in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no grounds, as already explained. The foolish boy had done it out of sheer vanity in being a Brahmana's son, and thus he became liable to be punished by the law of God. The Lord never forgives a person who condemns his pure devotee. Therefore, by cursing a king, the foolish Shringi had committed not only a sin, but also the greatest offense. Therefore, the Rishi could foresee that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save his boy from his sinful act. He therefore directly prayed for pardon from the Supreme Lord, who alone can undo a thing which is impossible to change. The appeal was made in the name of a foolish boy who had developed no intelligence at all. A question may be raised herein, that since it was the desire of the Lord that Parikshit Maharaj be put into that awkward position, so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was a Brahmana son made responsible for this offensive act? The answer is that the offensive act was performed by a child only so that he could be excused very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised why the Brahmana community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affairs, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana that the demons who acted inimically toward the personality of Godhead but were not killed by the Lord were allowed to take birth in the families of Brahmanas to take advantage of the age of Kali. Huh. The all-merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their births in the families of pious Brahmanas so that they could progress toward salvation. But the demons, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misused the Brahminical culture due to being puffed up by vanity and becoming Brahmanas. The typical example is the son of Shamika Rishi, and all the foolish sons of Brahmanas are warned hereby not to become as foolish as Shringi, and to be always on guard against the demoniac qualities which they had in their previous births. The foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord, but others, who may not have a father like Shamika Rishi, will be put into great difficulty if they misuse the advantages obtained by birth in a Brahmin family. Tiraskrita vipralabdha saptakshipta hata api nasyatat pratikurvanti tad bhakta prabhavopihi. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Purport. Riki Shamika also knew that the Lord does not forgive a person who has committed an offense at the feet of a devotee. The Lord can only give direction to take shelter of the devotee. He thought within himself that if Maharaj Parikshit would counter-curse the boy, he might be saved. But he knew also that a pure devotee is callous about worldly advantages or reverses. As such, the devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation, curses, negligence, and so on. As far as such things are concerned, in personal affairs, the devotees do not care for them. But in the case of their being performed against the Lord and his devotees, then the devotees take very strong action. It was a personal affair, and therefore Shamika Rishi knew that the king would not take counteraction. Thus there was no alternative than to place an appeal to the Lord for the immature boy. It is not that only the Brahmanas are powerful enough to award curses or blessings upon the subordinates. The devotee of the Lord, even though he may not be a Brahmana, is more powerful than a Brahmana. But a powerful devotee never misuses the power for personal benefit. Whatever power the devotee may have is always utilized in service towards the Lord and his devotees only. Iti putra kritaghena sunutapta mahamunihi swayam viprakrito ragya naivagam tara chintayat. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. Purport. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit's garlanding the sage with a dead snake was not at all a very serious offense. But Shringi's cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only. Therefore he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse offered to him by a foolish Brahmana. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation, and by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Shukadeva Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Shamika, and his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person. Text 50. Prayasa sarvo loke parardvandveshu yojitaha navyatanti na hrishyanti yata atma gunashrayah. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Purport. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystics aim at perceiving the all-pervading Supersoul, and the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagawan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distresses and happinesses are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee, and the rishi was a mystic. Therefore both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit, Cursed by a Brahmin Boy. Sadhu, sadhus. Woo! Hare Krishna. End of chapter 18. This is the last chapter now, 19. So we'll open it up for questions, comments, discussion. Anything anybody wants to share? Hare Krishna. Excuse me. Well, we heard a lot so far today about, some more dynamics of pastime. Up until this point, we're hearing from Shringi and how heavily he was taken the actions of Mars Prediction. And then today, basically, Shamika Rishi just came out of trance and he just was like, "What's the matter? Did somebody hurt you?" And he just threw the snake, and he didn't even care about that really. So it's an interesting dynamics of perception, realization, because this is also relevant, in our life. Sometimes things happen and it seems like such a big deal, and then we get some association from somebody who actually helps us see, wow, that actually really wasn't such a big deal, or maybe actually, yeah, you're right, I'm worrying unnecessarily about this thing, or whatever it is. So I like exploring those different dynamics. Haribo, welcome to Zoom 123. Hare Krishna. We just finished chapter 18 of Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're just having a little discussion. Hare Krishna. Anyway, and another really significant point that we heard today was that basically devotees are not interested in basically revenge. I'm trying to find the exact quote. When an offense is done unto the devotee of the Lord, it's very difficult to overcome the reaction. Oops, it's not the quote I was looking for. Sorry, I wanted the exact quote. But these are also important points. Rishi Shamika also knew that the Lord does not forgive a person who has committed an offense at the feet of a devotee. The Lord can only give direction to take shelter of the devotee. He thought within himself that if Maharaj Parikshit would countercurse the boy, he might be saved, but he knew also that a pure devotee is callous about worldly advantages or reverses. As such, the devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation, curses, negligence, and so on. It's a really important point because, we might find ourselves, uh, as a devotee or an aspiring devotee at least, associating with devotees, maybe living with devotees. There may be some defamation or at least some neglect. What else was listed? Curses. Well, I don't know if maybe getting cursed in a different kind of way nowadays, but curses, negligence, and so on, maltreatment of any kind, really, even within the Sangha of devotees or so called devotees. But actually, the important point is how a pure devotee is not inclined to counteract these things. So that's definitely, at least for myself, it's a quality to, you know, cultivate and practice is basically accepting the situation as coming from Krishna, as Maharaj Pariksit did. It's such a nice aspect of this particular pastime, Maharaj Pariksit. The way he gracefully accepted the curse and took full advantage of the situation to hear Bhagavatam and obtain perfection by hearing from Srila Shukadev Goswami. So, it really requires us to be on the transcendental platform to do that. Prabhupada said there's one quality that cannot be faked is tolerance. Actually tolerating these kind of things, can't fake that. Either you're tolerant or you're not. You know, can't fake it. So we have to tolerate, and actually, as we advance in our uh, awareness of what is happening, we might be able to see a great opportunity in a situation that otherwise is just superficially a reversal, or maybe we're at the receiving end of some maltreatment of some kind. So sometimes it takes a little patience and tolerance to see, but in any case, it's a good quality for us, at least who are aspiring to be in pure devotional service, to develop. So I thought that was important.
Jay Prabhuji,
Yeah.
Krishna, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to hear. So I wanted to bring up, on that note, of several points where, Srila Prabhupada exemplified this being everyone's well-wisher. And, as we were reading Bhagavatam earlier, the first canto, it's mentioned how, a devotee has no enemy, really. And if anything, maybe the mind can be our enemy, or kind of falsely identifying with, maybe the circumstance or something, how we're receiving. But um, again, those points of as tolerant as the tree, this is key. Acceptance is key. And within that, if we are able to sustain our equilibrium, maybe be something beyond reactive or feeling emotionally, distraught about the situation. We still have things come up, different things, but if we can see it for what it really is, then yeah, that's acceptance, and so we're really not necessarily having to feel so hurt by something that maybe comes out. And we can always feel maybe that we're sensitive in the way we said something misreceived from someone. But oftentimes, if we know really who we are, where we're coming from, and keep our consciousness and intention in alignment, then there's no question of what we did in a wrong state or an ill intent. That's the big difference. Srila Prabhupada being well-wisher, without having, some sort of ill intent or negativity. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there with a cough. Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Prabhuji. Yeah, it's a nice also reference to the Shikshashtakam. The Prabhupada said we should wear this verse around our neck. And the translation is, one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So, yeah, it's a nice reference, and I like what you're saying about remembering who we are, where we're coming from, and being grounded in that. Yeah, it means like you know who we are, at least on the devotional platform. Spirit, soul, acting from that paradigm. Even if I'm not quite there yet, like this is one practice of a devotee is cultivating that perception and paradigm. Like, okay, even if I'm not on that level, I can understand maybe intellectually. Okay, I'm a spirit soul, and a spirit soul means part and parcel of the spirit whole, and just thinking of oneself in that connection, because the tendency is to just think of oneself as the body. It's like our default here, and we get so affected by things connected with the body or not, just with perceived identity of self, you know. So yeah, that's a really good point, and and also by your example, Prabhuji, being grounded in that identity and grounded in thinking, feeling, willing from that platform, and it can be done by Krishna's grace, by sadhana, associating with advanced devotees, and also trying to minimize offenses that we do. But if anything, sincerity of heart, Krishna helps us because there's so many offenses and so many things to try to avoid. And maybe somebody knows Prabhupada. There was some interaction with a disciple and with Srila Prabhupada about the number of rules and regulations, and then Prabhupada said something to the effect of like, "Oh, this is only a small fraction. If I showed you all of them, you'd faint," or something like that. Basically, in this time, like hardly anybody, if practically nobody, can follow them all. So, there's obviously some grace there for sincere practitioners. Hare Krishna. Anyway, thanks for sharing, Prabhuji. Anybody else want to share anything? Yeah, the topic of like introspection and interaction with others in devotional service is a very big topic to me. Like one of the most important, arguably the most important instruction from Srila Prabhupada on his deathbed was, you show your love for me by how you cooperate. So there's a lot to that, actually. We have to be able to navigate our own body, mind, psychophysical nature, and then also, develop these qualities like tolerance, forgiveness, patience, understanding where others are at, and it's not easy, especially right now. that in itself is going against the grain of Kali Yuga, as we've been hearing. Kali means quarrel. It's like the main feature of this particular time is all the quarrel. So to actually take these steps, these practical steps, even like self-development, introspection, self-development in devotional service, uh, to counteract that current of Kali Yuga. Very important. Okay, anyway, I don't want to just keep blabbing here. Does anybody else want to share something? Anybody have an experience with another devotee that maybe we could have done better? Maybe, well, this devotee came up to me and I got really mad at them, and then later I realized actually actually I was overreacting or whatever. You don't have to share this stuff, but just throwing something out there as an idea of like, this aspect of devotional service is important. Interacting with devotees, because association with devotees will really bring that out in us too. Show us where we need to improve. You know, help us sharpen our devotional service, our intelligence.
Hare Krishna.
Hari.
I have an experience that happened during Mongol Arti one time. I was doing the kartals, and this one devotee, he was like leading the kirtan, and he was just singing. He wasn't playing any instruments, and the person next to him was playing kartals. And I don't know if the singer asked him to stop playing or what, but that devotee came up to me and tried to hand me his like louder kartals, and I was just keeping to myself in the back, like doing my simple like three tall in the background, just quietly. And he was like, "Here, like take these kartals instead," and I was like kind of like absorbed in my own service, enjoying it. And I was like, "Why, Prabhu?" And then my other devotee friend next to me like saw this like interaction and just like jumped up and like grabbed the kartals from him and like went up to the front and started playing kartals, kind of like the same way I was playing, like three tall simple. And then the singer eventually stopped him from playing and like didn't enjoy his like kartal playing. And then he just like went and put the kartals away. And then we talked about it at breakfast. And he's like, like at first I got like really upset. He's like, you told me to stop playing, and I like immediately my false ego like got in the way and just thought like, oh, like what's wrong with this devotee, rah, rah, rah. And then later on, he's like, you know what? I actually kind of realized like if my kartal playing is going to be ruining or like messing with his kirtan and making him unable to perform his kirtan properly, like who am I to say that like I should be the one correct in this position? Like he's the one that's leading the kirtan, and it was just like a really nice humbling experience because I too had like a sort of kind of like, why is this person telling me how to like perform kirtan? And so yeah, my devotee friend really like, he said it took him like a couple hours for him to even come to that realization, but he eventually did. And then he was sharing with me at breakfast, and I was super thankful because I was also having like very like similar kind of feelings about it. And he helped open my eyes about that.
Yeah, that's a nice story. Yeah, because um, we tend to want to take it personally, right? Like, just because he asked you to stop is, I mean, unless he directly said, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're even doing something wrong. It's just he might have a certain mood and a certain focus, and sometimes I can just say as sometimes I lead kirtans, and sometimes I just might be in a different mood. I might just be in a mood of like going super slow and soft, and sometimes you know it's not that somebody else will do something wrong, but it's just you know it can be even subtler than that, mood thing. But then also it's nice to hear how you described. It's like coming to more of like a service mood on the topic.
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah, so that's really cool. It also reminds me of one time when I was a bhakta. There was a very famous big swami in New Vrindavan, and it was a big day. I can't remember. It might have been Janmashtami, some huge festival, biggest festival of the year, and he's very Okay, I'll just say it was Jayadvaita Swami, and if you know, he's written the Kirtan Standards book now, and he's kind of known. At least he was, and I assume that he still is, especially because of this book. But he's quite known for being very specific about how he wants kirtan done, especially when he's leading. So nobody wanted to play Mridanga for him. I think everybody was like scared because he also will rip into you really heavy, apparently, at least at that time. So yeah, it was Mangal Arti, and I barely, I'm like a bhakta. I mean, I could play a little bit, but I was by no means very skilled, and I definitely wasn't the most skilled one there. But nobody wanted to play, and somebody grabbed the mridanga and gave it to me and like put it on me, and they're like, "Here you go." And like they're like, "Here, like let's give it to this poor little like sucker right here," basically. So I was like, "All right." So I just started playing for him, and I knew he was specific, so I was really just trying to be in a service mood and trying to do what he wanted. And he was going real slow, and typically in like like in the Gruvastikam, a lot of devotees might do the same things. At certain parts speed up, at certain parts go to the double speed or whatever. And there seems to be kind of like certain things that a lot of devotees do. Well, he wasn't doing any of those things. He was going at his own way. So I was following and his kartal playing started speeding up slightly, and I thought I was following pretty good, and he stopped the kirtan, and he like turned and looked at me with like complete disgust on his face. He's like, "Who told you to speed up?" And it was dead silent, and I just got chastised in front of like 300 people, and I was like thinking, well, uh, actually, I thought I was following him. Actually, I thought he sped up. But I remember I was reading a lot of Bhagavatam. I was chanting. I was like fully fired up. And I just remember I just looked at Radharani and I thought, I'm supposed to see this as a blessing. And then he just continued, and then I just kept trying to follow him. And the rest of the kirtan went okay. And at the end, he just, he didn't say nothing. And then later, I ended up uh, like having lunch with him, and he was like treated me nicely and everything. But after that kirtan, a senior devotee came up to me and said, "Yeah, he messed up, not you." So it was interesting. Like I really didn't mess up, but I still got the the blessing of the chastisement. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing, Bhuva.
Yeah.
I liked your reaction, just looking right at Radharani.
Well, it was fresh in my mind because I just read it like the night before or something. So I just was like, it was like a big heavy thing, and I just was like, so I just like looked at Radharani, and I just thought, I'm supposed to see this as a blessing right now. I, I don't know if I was, but I knew I was supposed to. But it wasn't really that big of a deal, I think at least for me, especially as I get older, I'm less sensitive. I don't care, I'm not embarrassed, if I
Right.
messed up,
Yeah.
so much as I used to be on certain things. So Krishna has an interesting way of, purifying us and giving us the mercy when we need it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Prabhuji. Um, yep. So if anybody else wants to share, now's kind of the last call. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in and hearing. It's nice to be with all of you. Hare Krishna. I'm looking forward to hearing this last chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we know it, we're going to be in the second canto, which, if I remember correctly, especially those first couple chapters of the second canto are specifically nectar. So,
Sweet.
looking forward to that.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah. So, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I hope everybody has a good evening. And Krishna willing, we'll be here tomorrow at our regular time. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Haribo, 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 Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, dear devotees.
All right, thank you.